Now, I will say it is a case where there's risk here for Democrats. Okay. There is a real risk for Democrats, which is that this is only a D+8 seat. This is a seat that Mikey Sherrill had to work really hard to win in 2018, and that has, while swinging to the Democrats, is certainly, not not a guarantee layup forever seat. And I would think, and Michael probably agrees with this, that a DSA candidate is not the right candidate for that district. At the very least, in a bad election, they could have a close election. You guys sink a lot of money into it. But I really don't think that people reading into this are understanding the dynamic, or I think that they all have self-interest involved. It's either people who want this to be because they think it's a disaster for Democrats, or want this to be because they're desperate for it to happen ideologically. And I just don't think that someone getting 29% of the vote had the establishment consolidated. And had this been even a 65-29 kind of,
Yeah.
outcome with small party candidates getting a couple of percent, she would have gotten the same exact amount of the vote, and we would have been saying, okay, the establishment is holding just fine here.
So let's just say this. I think there's an election in April to fill out the seat. I assume she's going to win that election, special election, +8 seat for Democrats. Even with her left-wing views, I would still assume she wins that. But there's a primary in June. If Malinowski doesn't run, and I didn't see an indication that he is going to run, then I would assume. I don't know. I shouldn't say assume. I think it's a real possibility she loses the primary in June, and is just
Yeah.
basically gets to be a congressman for 8 or 9 months, which is not bad 'cause you get a pension when you get that, and it's a pretty good deal. Now, let me say one thing about the AIPAC art part of this as well.
Yeah.
I have a sort of counterintuitive take on AIPAC's role here. So AIPAC went in there, and for a lot of us who follow politics, Democratic politics, AIPAC's involvement in this race didn't make a lot of sense. Malinowski is, I'd say, with Israel, supportive of Israel, maybe 89% of the time. But AIPAC went after him, I guess, because he's not with them 100% of the time. And the way that I read this is that AIPAC sees their influence decreasing, particularly among Democrats. And their way of dealing with that is not to moderate their own views, or moderate or encourage Israel to moderate its policies, or, just in general to sort of be a little bit more um, consistent with the views of Democrats. They basically were like, we're going to go in there, we're going to hurt Malinowski to send a message to other Democrats who are thinking of wavering in their support for Israel, that this is what happens to you if you mess with us. And you could argue they were enormously successful. Now, this people will point out, well, then anti-Zionist, anti-Israel candidate won. I don't think AIPAC really cares about that. In fact, if anything, it actually kind of helps them, I think, because they can say, look at the Democratic Party. It's infused with anti-Zionist, views and politicians and so forth. So I think from their perspective, this wasn't even a bad result. Now, I say that, and then, of course, I have to also mention that the response on Capitol Hill from Democrats has been incredible frustration with what AIPAC has done. Like, really, real anger. And actually, Malinowski said he would not endorse any candidate in the next primary in June who's getting support from AIPAC. So he clearly is like, I get why he's upset. I don't know how this plays itself out. The cynical part of me says that a lot of Democrats are going to look to see what happened in New Jersey, and they're going to say, maybe I shouldn't screw around with AIPAC, because look, AIPAC has always exaggerated and promoted its political influence, its electoral influence. I don't know if it's the reason why Malinowski lost. People believe that, and that's what AIPAC wants. They want people to believe they are incredibly powerful, and they can shape election outcomes. And if people believe that, if Democrats believe that, well, that could affect how some Democrats think about Israel, talk about Israel on the campaign trail between now and whenever they have primaries this spring.